Okay, today I'm going to talk to you about the single-family residential real estate investor in the United States, what makes us up, what makes us tick, and how you can do business with people like me. I know a lot of you are not coming from the Main Street type mentality, and that's where I spend all of my time. We're a very niche market. We operate in very small circles, but we're starting to get more attention. Residential real estate investors account for about 28% of all residential sales year in and year out. I'm going to present a study that was conducted last year. It's entitled The Invaluable Investor. It was sponsored by the Home Depot, Home Investors, RE/MAX, National Tenant Network, Real Property Management, Keller Williams, and several other companies. It was pulled by Harris Interactive, and it was all put together by Real Trends and Personal Real Estate Investor Magazine. So that's the attribution. Oh, there's the rest of it. So a little bit about me so you understand who you're talking to. I'm a former Marine, 5 years as an intelligence analyst. And yes, that's not an oxymoron. There is intelligence in the Marine Corps. I'm a landlord and an owner financier. I do a lot of wholesaling, which means I sell to other investors. I'm the host of the Real Estate Investor Expo, the founder. I'm writing my first 3 books. I do everything at once. I do a lot of speaking. My primary focus is my wife and my children. I really enjoy this business because it allows me to do what I want, when I want, how I want. I was thinking about staying for dinner tonight with Condoleezza Rice, and I decided I would just go home with my son's football practice. Because at the end of the day, that's why we all do what it is we do. It should be. Not football necessarily. It should be soccer, baseball, whatever you want. I'm an EMT and a volunteer firefighter because I wasn't busy enough, so I just found some hobbies. I bought about 1,100 houses since I got out of the Marine Corps 11 years ago. And that's not in bulk tapes, that's sitting at kitchen tables, that's driving neighborhoods. Most of them are in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. A large portion were in Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. But I'm going to talk to you about that. I'm a development agent, which means I recruit, train, and support new franchisees for home investors, America's #1 home buyer. That's about the only plug I have for home investors. We've bought over 55,000 houses. We're in 38 states, 150-something markets, and we have over 350 franchisees nationwide. This year, we're on pace to buy right around 3,500 to 3,700 houses. Again, like I said earlier, we do fly under the radar. Blackstone buys 1,000 houses, and it's in the Wall Street Journal. We buy thousands and thousands and thousands a year. No one notices. Which some people say is a good thing, some say it's not. And 6 out of the last 10 years, I've been one of the top 10 franchises in the nation for home investors. I'm going to give you a lot of data. At the end of this, I'll repeat this, but if you email that email address or text that word to that number, we'll send you a copy of the slides and the data that we're going to cover. So, the study. Huh? Is that better? My last name is very difficult to pronounce and spell. I'm probably the only Tim Harris you will ever meet, unless I name my kid. So, this study was designed to highlight a substantial and high-return business segment within the residential real estate industry. Again, we were talking upstairs earlier about home investors, and estimates with home investors are we'll touch somewhere between $35 million and $40 million worth of houses this year. And that's just purchase price. That's not actual retail value. We'll talk a little bit more about the way we buy and the way we work. This study is focused on 1 to 4 family. It does not include apartment units. Anything 5 doors or more, we do not really focus on. That's not our bread and butter. So when you look at single-family doors, about 1.24 million units a year are purchased by individual investors, not institutions. It's the mom-and-pop shops that are operating on Main Street. Largely an unorganized segment. It's hard to even find out where we are unless you just go to Google and click on a pay-per-click ad. Pretty large portion of the market. The average, you can't read this down here, the average price is estimated at $97,560. Individual real estate investors buy more houses every year than first-time homebuyers. You always hear the market talking about first-time homebuyers. And it's amazing when this study was concluded, this is the third one of these studies, every year, 20 to 30% of the single-family homes that are bought in the United States are with an invaluable investor, as we call it. Even with the market transitioning back into a seller's market, we do believe that the numbers will still stay well above 20%. When you start aggregating the data, it seems to stay 23 to 25% consistent year over year. Just another representation. We're going to talk about this in a minute. Because it's important, a lot of you in this room and in this building this weekend are real estate agents or REO brokers. And a lot of REO brokers we run into have their pocket investor or two. It's just the way this works. A lot of it goes back to the culture of real estate agents from the 80s, which I know my mom and dad were real estate agents, so I know what it's all about. Got to run out and sell a house. On average, annually, the average investor buys 3 units per year, compared to 1.7 when you factor in retail home buyers and vacation second home purchasers. These numbers do not include, we do not call vacation homes or second homes an investment property for the purposes of this survey. So they say that the average home buyer will buy, is good for 3.4 transactions per every 7-year cycle. Because not everyone that buys has a house to sell, not everyone that sells is buying a house. So they estimate each time that a customer does business with an agent, it's about 1.24 transactions. So over 7 years, the average investor will conduct 21 transactions, whereas the average home buyer will conduct 3.4. So if you really break it down a little bit farther, the first-time home buyers equate to about 1.2 transactions, and then 2.1 the repeat buyers, repeat sellers. Volume, of course, the general public spends more on houses because investors are typically looking for cash flow versus a place to live. So when you break the volume down, put in the NAR, the median home price 166, 100. That was last year. I haven't looked up the data for this year. Another representation of the 21 transactions over a 7-year cycle. So the first time since 1999, our home ownership rate is below 65%. It got up to about 69% at the peak. But we're back down to 65%. Really and truly, when you look at the health of the housing market, the market's the most healthy when that home ownership rate is between 62 and 64%. When we start letting too many people buy houses, there's too many people that shouldn't be buying houses. Sorry. It is what it is. I visit a lot of them at the kitchen table and explain to them they should not have bought the house. And then give my cash off. We're seeing a lot of trending. This survey was talking about housing stock and how you're probably going to start having a division between the median home price is actually going to probably start going up, where the average home price will go down. Because a lot of the new jobs that are being created are low-level service industry jobs. And you look at the nation's gross domestic product now, the national GDP is actually at the highest percentage, the national debt's at the highest percentage of the GDP for the first time since 2 years after the Great Depression. And the beautiful thing about that is now we count things like iTunes downloads in our GDP. They don't even make iPads here, but we count the downloads. So that's not creating a whole lot of jobs. So who are we? People like me that run around the nation buying up houses. Someone asked me what I do with all the houses, and I always like to make a joke of it, just tell them that I'm trying to own all of Dallas. That's not the truth. I had one friend that buys houses, 2,000 houses at a time. His goal is to own entire subdivisions. That's not my goal. We broke it up into three categories: the aspirational investor, the income investor, and the career investor. And these are interesting things because the only one that you really ever see in the public eye is the aspirational investor, the person that just wants to be an investor. Or they heard about rent houses and they thought, I'll buy a couple rent houses. The beautiful thing about the aspirational investors is typically a couple years later they sell to someone like me because they can't manage the asset. Then you have the income investor. Those are people that are buying either for cash flow or to fix and flip. Then you have the career investor, someone like myself. When polled, the numbers indicated we were asking how many properties per year will you purchase, and it's very interesting. I would have thought that the poll would have been a lot heavier weighted to 5 to 7 than 8 plus, but it's amazing how many people are in that 0 to 2 and 3 to 4 category. A lot of that's because a lot of investors don't actually identify themselves as an investor. The career investors, the people that may add a house or two per year to their rental portfolio, they don't even identify themselves as investors. To them, it's diversification. They've diversified their investment account into a portfolio of residential real estate. And but then you notice the career investors, once they get over 3 to 4, it quickly jumps. They're not going to do 5 to 7. They're going to do more than 4. They're going to do more than 8. Someone like me this year, I'll buy about 75 to 80 houses here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I will talk about what I do with mine here in a little bit. So here you have exit strategy by segment. These are the rental investors, people that say that, hey, I want to buy a house and hold it forever. And you notice the aspirational investors, 55% of them, that they state that as their strategy. And the career investors are actually lower in that because the second category is buy, rent, and sell. The average investor has a planned hold time of 5 to 7 years. They go into an asset looking to hold it for 5 to 7 years. They take all the depreciation that they can on a componentized basis because that runs out in about 7 to 10 years. Then they sell all that money over to another asset and restart the depreciation clock. That's what most career investors do. A lot of my friends right now are having huge tax burdens because they're selling chunks of their portfolio, 20, 30 houses at a time, to hedge funds. And the tax event is actually quite substantial. So they've had the 1031 market is coming back alive for people like us. And then immediate resale. You'll find, it's funny, when most people think about the flipper, so to speak, the first thing that they think about is the late night TV guru, the Dean Graziosi, Donald Trump, Robert Kiyosaki, the seminar crowd. They're all about fix and flip, fix and flip, fix and flip. And it's kind of interesting that those of us that are active in the business, that is really how people identify our industry. As the guy that's going to kick in the front door to a house, buy it, completely remodel it, sell it today, and state his numbers as he made $50,000 when he really made $5. Volume by segment. This is just another representation of the 2 slides ago. This was very interesting. I thought for sure there would be more people that executed the fix and flip, fix and resell, or immediate resale strategy. And what happened is we realized that the polling data included a lot of career landlords, people with their 10, 15 houses, enough passive income, enough residual income to last them, and they have no plans to resell. Less than 18% of investors polled have said that they actually purchase properties with the intent for immediate resale, which just tells us in the leadership of the real estate investor space that we're not doing a good enough job spreading our message and organizing those that have a stake in what it is we do. Meeting in Kansas City in a couple of weeks about that, isn't there, Mike? Definite U-curve between those that are looking for, those that just get started. A lot of accidental landlords. They inherit a house, they put couldn't sell the house, they got underwater, now the tenants trashed the house, so now they can't sell it, they still don't have any money, they haven't changed their living habits, so they're still a landlord. What we see on those is it's beautiful for me, because a couple years later, they're not going to be able to keep lowering the rent because they haven't improved the property condition, and eventually it comes back on the market in a rather distressed situation, and that's where people like me get to step in. It's funny. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. That's another representation. I included the same chart a couple times. We already went over that. I think I'm hitting the wrong button. Yeah, people that currently own property. We notice the drop off at the 5 to 7 year mark, because what happens is there are people, once they get here in the accidental landlord range, that's when there's typically a sell with it. There's a, hey, I'm done with this, I'm going to bring money to closing, or it's time to dump this thing on MLS, or a default. You see a lot of defaults in that 3 to 4 year mark when people have had to rent out a house because they either couldn't sell it or they had to move because of the job. A lot of times people move, they think they'll come back and live in that house, and it never happens. So amongst the 83% that are stating that they're going to buy and hold, 65% say that they're going to rent to sell in 5 to 7 years, and 35% say that they're in for the long haul. There's no real exit plan. So typically buy in a year. People that are looking to resell typically buy 5 plus. It's interesting because that's more of a dealer business. So the people that are really fixing flippers in the market, they have to be repeat clients on an annual basis because you can only squeeze blood out of the turnip, so to speak. So if their margins are 15%, they have to turn more units. It's really a dealer business. The IRS treats us as such as well. Large margin tax. If we sell in a year, so again, the rental investors are like, well, I may sell one. It's like me right now. When you look at my entire portfolio, I have this one house in Balch Springs, Texas, that went vacant in June. We had a plumbing leak, had to replace the roof. Mike, you didn't have the insurance on this one. We had a plumbing leak, had to replace the roof, had to fix the foundation, about $25,000 remodel. So we're actually selling that house now that it's all the way rehab to go ahead and recoup cash and reinvest in a more stable market. That house, it's been vacant twice a year for the last 8 years. So if anyone wants to buy a house in Balch Springs, Texas, it's a great rental. Again, price point by strategy. This was an interesting one. So most landlords state that they're buying right between 60% of the median home price to 100% of the median home price. That's really the sweet spot. At HomeVestors, we've found that 70 to 90% of the median is really where we need to focus. So in Dallas-Fort Worth, you're looking at a 105 to 125 house. And we're, in a minute, we'll talk about the way people. A lot of times we found these 200,000 plus houses that people are buy and hold. That gets into speculation. So when you talk about structures of ownership, 52% said that they own through their company. 50% take title individually within their own name, which I don't understand. 29% own with their family. 6% other. Those are a lot of funds, fund investors, etc. So then when you look at ownership type by value, up here, you're in the individual, and that's probably largely because of conventional financing. They have to take title in their individual name at that price point because they're going to have, the only way that investment makes any sense is to lock in on some cheap 30-year money, which banks don't provide. So you have to go up to conventional lending. Down here, the reason you see that owned through my company really get large there is most investors on the single family level end up borrowing money from local banks on a 3% 315 mini term loan, something that adjusts in 3 years. Typically, your prime plus 1, prime plus 2, about 80% loan to cost. So those numbers always make more sense if you can watch, rinse, and repeat. Because if you're putting 20% skin in the game on $200,000 houses, the individual really isn't going to be able to weather that for too long. Then when you take number of properties, it's always amazing to me when I meet a career investor that owns property in his own personal name. It blows my mind. But yet we found that 67% of them actually still own, that have 8 or more, still own it in their personal name. We'll talk about later about the services that investors are needing, which a lot of you hear that service assets and lending, it's one of those things that it's just quality education and understanding of the liabilities and the risks. But a lot of them probably hold that because how many Fannie Mae loans, Fannie and Freddie loans can you do on investment property? 10. So I'd imagine if you had this category broken down as 10 plus, that number would change dramatically. Average spend, we spend a lot of money, us single family investors. When you break it down by property value, the $75,000 to $100,000 house, we average spending about $10,850 per unit. Is there a movie theater behind me? Am I the only one that can hear that? Whoa, you got the bar over here. Oh, the bar. Maybe we should all go there. It's very interesting when we started polling on what investors use to conduct their business, and the vast majority do everything by themselves or are involved with a family member. Typically, the family member is a real estate agent. But it's very interesting how many, in all of these next couple slides, that actually do everything by themselves. And then, of course, second is a real estate agency, friends, colleagues. There's a big peer group, reliance on peer group that we found. So just a bit of a recap. 65% of the rental investors plan to resell, which is interesting to me, but it's more of a national poll. They say the average portfolio size is about 7.5 houses, and it's the mom and pop investor that they get it, they're taking the depreciation, they're getting the cash flow, eventually they're going to fix it, they're going to resell. When you take the actual rental units, rental doors, there are about 38 million rental units in the United States at this point in time. This was, I think, October 2012 is when this, yeah, there you go. October 2012. So when you take that 38 million units, 52% are the 1 to 4 family. So that means there's about 20.1 million single-family rental units owned by individuals in the United States. The average rental make-ready is about $2,500. Remodeling costs range between $8,000 to $10,000. So when you add that all up, just in the rental make-ready of new assets every year, you got about a $6.8 billion expenditure class. And then when you look at the make-readies of existing units, that's another $6.3 billion that we spend annually. Actually, one of the reasons the Home Depot really started paying attention to us lately. We feel like this survey is a little bit on the cautionary side of that as well, because as home investors, we're able to track our franchisees' data, and we know that we spend an average of $11,000 either on the initial acquisition or on the rental make-ready. We spend a lot of money. Financing. Single largest barrier of entry for real estate investors getting into this space is financing. Financing is hard to come by. You have to develop a track record. Most investors polled pay an average of 13% interest on their acquisition capital. It's an amazing number. We estimate it's about a $113 billion market for financing. 26% of investors say they use cash. 25% say they use traditional financing when they can find it, and then 37% said they use accommodation. Again, traditional financing is it's nice, but investors cap out at 10 loans. They typically, after they hit 10 loans, then they have to either find a portfolio lender that will do a refi of all 10 loans so that they can start the clock up again, or they have to develop local sources. Local sources are a little bit more expensive, decreased cash flow. It's a barrier to growth. Yes, sir.
Where would you fit contract fee or bank contract to investors, in other words, the seller finance to the investor?
Where would I fit it?
Yeah,
that would be other.
Would you call that traditional?
No, that's going to be more. They would probably call that. I'm trying to think of the respondent answering the survey.
Yeah.
We'd probably call it other or hard money almost. Right? Just depends on the rate. Typically, the land contracts and contract fees I've seen to investors, to non-homestead loan, are 8 to 12%. So I'd call that hard money. I don't know about you.
It's real hard.
Yeah. Painful. It's easy if you're the guy who doesn't have it.
Right.
Part of our focus in all of the leadership councils right now is developing new financing sources. When you look at our collective bargaining power and the amount of money that we spend annually, the fact that getting less than 6% money is something that you have to be a hedge fund to do is not something I subscribe to. But you've got really experienced guys who know how to go sit in the bank and talk. But even then, you're looking at all those bank loans. I always tell the story of what happened to me in April 2008. August 2007, I'm in the right room. Y'all know that's when the crash started. It really got good going. What was it, August 13th, when those 100 and some odd mortgage companies went out of business overnight? I had 38 vacant fix and flip properties going on. We lost at least $500,000 in the fourth quarter. We don't even know. We were leaking when we were on incrementals. Well, then what happened is all of my rentals were all with local banks. So what starts to happen is the local bank sells to the regional bank sells to the hedge fund, and the hedge fund says, we don't like this line of assets. So all of the commercial loans at local banks typically have a 2 to 3 year call or an annual review with a reset of interest rate. So what happened in April of 2008, I get this bank, great people before they sold 3 times, and they called me up and they said, well, Tim, you need to pay off this $400,000 line. I'm like, don't you know what we're all going through? I've never been a day late. They're 100% leased. I've got 30-40% equity. What's the deal? They said, well, we don't like that anymore. And you actually do have to. I would have been better off if I had overborrowed, because then they wouldn't have known that they could have taken it and resold it. So money is a big problem for real estate investors. We are a band of unorganized Indians running around the nation. You're an REO agent in here, you know what it's like when a seminar gets out in your hometown. Everybody calls and says they have cash, they buy 100 houses a month, they go through the script. It happens with me. People call me up, and everyone's an investor for a week or 2. So, unfortunately, we have the national REIA out there, the National Real Estate Investor Association, but largely, people buy houses relying on Zillow regularly, rarely MLS. We sold a house on auction.com a couple months ago to someone in New York that emailed me afterwards to get a copy of the foundation warranty. And he was so excited about his $250,000 house he bought. I called him up and I said, hey, what are you going to do with that? He goes, I'm going to sell it for $250,000. That's about a $180,000 house. Where you got that information? Zillow. We'll buy any more. But it was interesting. I love auction.com. It goes back to that liability issue. So many investors, they hold title on their personal name. It's amazing to me when I I see it. So, I guess it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm down at the foreclosure auction here in Dallas, and I meet a guy from bulk sales and Fannie Mae. He's watching the foreclosure process. He's back then, of course, he's reeling from his inventory issue. And so I fly out to DC and I talk to him, and he's like, well, you know, you say you're an investor. Why won't you buy these assets? And he hands me this tape in Oklahoma and Arkansas and Louisiana and Texas. I'm like, I will buy them, but we have to offer less. He said, well, no, you were telling me at the auction that you pay, you know, only a 30% discount. I said, well, yeah, but you're forcing me to become regional. And anyone that runs a department of business or anything knows that, you know, with increased geography comes increased risk, and with increased risk has to come increased margin. And so 51% say they buy in the town or city they live or work. And then it's interesting, the next 25% say that they buy either where they live or work or in a city they do business in, or and they're regular. And then 13% are morons because they say they buy in their own neighborhood. And if you've ever had a tenant, you know you don't want the tenant living down the street from you. And 11% say other. So if you're trying to figure out how to make more money, sell distressed assets, only force investors, you can sell a tape of assets in Dallas-Fort Worth for 85 cents on the dollar if you just did Dallas-Fort Worth. But in my 11 years of this business, every tape I get my hands on has stuff from Houston and Oklahoma and Louisiana, or it's already been picked up by a big national firm for 35, 40 cents on the dollar, and they've got it marked up to 78. It's all regional. People like me were regional. We pay a lot more, but it's got to be in my little city, my comfort zone. Now, it is interesting, identifying assets. 63% of investors say that they work with real estate agents that they have a relationship with. Relationship. I'm telling you, I bought 6 houses this year from one agent. She picks up the phone when she goes on a listing appointment. If it's a trasher, she calls me, says, hey, meet me there, make an offer while you're here. I mean, we have a very, I don't even have a information on brokerage services agreement with them. I show up, I make an offer, if we do a contract, that's great. And that's, by and large, where most investors buy is through existing relationships. Someone like me, I spend, home investors here in Dallas, if you've ever seen the We Buy Ugly Houses billboard, I mean, that's who we are. We spend about $140,000 a month right now in advertising. So I'm not all that great at math, but that's almost $2 million a year in advertising. So I don't buy a whole lot of houses through agents. I don't spend my time cultivating those relationships because I spend my money putting billboards up on the side of the house. Traditional internet, pay-per-click investors are great. 38% through a wholesaler, short sale, for a foreclosure REO. Friends and colleagues is a big chunk of how people identify assets. Craigslist, I was amazed at the 25%, but I have new franchisees that go to a new market, and that's where they buy their first couple houses almost every time. They just get on Craigslist and start searching for handyman special or as-is house. And it's amazing. Then I look at the fool because I was going to spend $5,000 on a bill. Now, once it gets down to conducting due diligence, the trend switches. This is when investors, because we're all the smartest people there are, and we're all the most independent people that ever. So they start doing their own research and due diligence, and they don't rely on an agent to do due diligence. They rely on agents to find houses. It's very interesting. Every investor, they got to get their own bids, they got to pull their own comps, they go to some public website. It's very interesting. You know, we are a misunderstood and marginalized industry. It's largely because there is no National Association of Real Estate Investors. I mean, there is. It does exist, but it's very inactive. I mean, you take someone like me, and I'm not even a member. I'm a member of the National Real Estate Investor Association, not the National Association of Real Estate Investors. We don't have a NAR or a Texas Association of Realtors or Mortgage Bankers Association. It's just that we're an unorganized band of misfits, so to speak. And a lot of people like it that way because they don't want more people to know how much money you can make by owning real estate and getting all the deductions and loopholes that Congress put there because that's where they hold all of their wealth. But me, I think there's enough room to grow. So when we talk about investor services, just so y'all know, I'm not going to go for a full hour. I think we're about good on data at the end of the day. I'll take questions and stuff. When it comes to management, 44% of investors say that they do it all themselves. And that's why 44% of people complain about that call in the middle of the night and end up selling the house quick. Because, I tell you, in my portfolio, there are 5 tenants that still live in my houses that have my cell phone number. I stopped using my cell phone number with my tenants about 8 years ago. But there's 5 that they've got my cell phone number. And it never fails. It's 8 o'clock at night on a Friday. That's when the AC goes out. That's when there's a storm and the roof leaks. Why are you smiling? Your AC go out at 5 o'clock last Friday? All right. Hope you didn't call me. And then property management. I've actually transitioned my entire portfolio to property management because I've learned that it's a lot better if your investment doesn't call you and complain. It's nice to just let someone else handle all of that. And we're actually seeing a big shift to that. A lot of investors switching to property management companies. Except for the old timers. The old timers, they do it all themselves. A buddy of mine has 3,500 doors here in Dallas, and I swear he's a masochist because he started his own property management company 3 different times and sold it 3 different times. So it's like, I mean, he starts it, gets fed up with it, sells it, then starts it, gets fed up with it, sells it. I said, Scott, are you making money doing that? He said, no, I just get tired. Stop starting a new one. That's what I said. Price. Investors are cheap. Cheap. They won't pay for a dang thing. It is amazing how cheap investors are. The first lesson investors understand is buy low, sell high. And they think they can buy everything low from that point forward. My wife always makes fun of me. We were at the REI outlet in New York City a couple months ago, and I asked for a 20% discount on a backpack, and I got it. I just had to start naming stuff. I was like, how about veterans? USA? I just kept asking. She finally hit a button. I'll probably make you shut up. But investors are cheap, but then here's the interesting thing. They don't want to pay for anything. They believe that quality is very important. If you're a realtor here, if you've ever dealt with investors, you know they don't want to pay both sides. They don't want to pay a full price. They want you to list their house for a reduced rate because they're going to give you multiple business and everything. But then the next slide says that real estate service is the most important part of it, but they don't want to pay. So we're cheap and we're unorganized and difficult to deal with. I think that about sums up this presentation, right? You're shaking your head. You must have had a good phone call. When polled, though, investors have said that they really need help identifying properties that fit their criteria. The biggest thing slowing down the growth of the single-family rental market is ease of locating and acquiring property. So I see a building full of people that end up with a lot of property, and I'm going to say something my wife will probably be upset about. She's an REO agent she works with Heavy Holiday Realtors out in Rockwall, and she does Fannie and Freddie houses. And I get to listen to the asset manager that tells her to rehab a house, and then I get to see the bill. I'm telling you, that bill is about 3 times what I would pay to rehab the house, and my quality would be about 2 times as good. And then I watch houses go months without selling, and then end up selling for a contract that they had a couple weeks before, but they had passed on it. I mean, or below a contract that had been presented a couple weeks before. And I get to watch all of this. And it's funny, as I see people are like, oh, well, you've got to end with Fannie and Freddie because you're like, you nuts. I mean, I can't buy any of those houses. But what we found out is, I'm telling you, if you will learn to take your as-is inventory, specifically distressed, $10,000 to $20,000 in rehab and present it to investors. Now, as an agent, if you're an agent, you've got to be careful. You can't talk about the future appreciation because that's a projection, blah, blah, blah. But you can point people to the right directions. And I'm telling you, if you find a way to package them up, we're selling our houses in Dallas-Fort Worth about 89 cents on the dollar right now, as is, just because we're really good at speaking the language of our buyer. That's what it's all about, is speaking the language of people like me. Because we're buying left and right. So this was conducted, I'll let you read this later if you want. We are our own worst enemy. The visible 5% of my industry is the late night TV guru. It's the people that hold, what do they call them, foreclosure bus trips and all this other stuff. Heard Donald Trump got sued a couple weeks ago, $40-something million for Trump University for his, by the New York Attorney General, no, for his education for the Trump University. Kiyosaki settled a big $40 million suit last year because it's sexy, and right now real estate investing is getting really sexy again. So I mean, you drive around town, there is a different seminar or a national speaker or someone in town to take advantage of the general public every week. But that's only 5%, is the bottom line of what I'm trying to convey to you guys. That's only 5% of the people. The other 95% of real estate investors are a real animal that we buy a lot of houses. And you saw the first slide. We're 28% of all 1 to 4 family sales. That's what I just said. You know, we're easy. People don't want to do business with investors. We're sharks, we're cheap. I get it. But specifically now, when you're looking at more ways to convert on more widgets, I highly recommend you get to understand what it is we do. Even, I mean, I heard someone earlier talking about evicting a tenant out of an REO. And my thing is, why? If you have an income-producing piece of real estate, I mean, there's $1.2 trillion out there looking for income-producing real estate. Don't evict it. Sell it turnkey. Yeah, I mean, get a good lease in place, go out there and restructure it, sell it. Yeah, investors, goes back to what we were saying. They're cheap, but they want great service. Makes it very difficult to be me most months. Again, if you email me, I'll send you all these slides, and I'll also send you the full 72-page invaluable investor survey. It's a great night read if you like that kind of thing. A lot of good data in there, and we'll send you these slides. I don't know what the norm is here. Mandy, do I say goodbye or do I take questions? Okay. Hey, yes, ma'am.
What kind of ROI do you typically look at when
A seasoned investor understands that they're looking for an 8%. The newer investors call it a 12% ROI, but they call it 12% because they don't know how to factor in vacancy, maintenance, and management. So about 8% is the industry norm.
So are you using the same ROI as far as
Cap rates really go into play after you get out of the 1 to 4 family space. Once you go to the 5 to 10 and multi-units, that's when people really talk in terms of cap rates. Typically, with these type of assets, single family 1 to 4, people, as long as you're talking cash on cash return and on annualized income, that's what we talk. That's what most people talk about in the industry. Yes, sir.
What percentage do you have that's self-finance notes versus rental? You're flipping?
Very interesting. So I bought 1,100. I didn't get to keep all 1,100. We have to build slow, right? I've sold most of them. But of my portfolio, I'm actually over 70% owner finance now. We started transitioning to owner finance in 08 because the truth about owner finance is they're going to stay 7.5, 8 years and then move out. But they're going to take a lot better care of the property. The average tenant in the state of Texas stays 1.8 years. So when you look at it, I'll take the 7.5. Of the probably 150, 200 owner finance transactions I've done in 11 years, 2 have refinanced.
You're looking at 8 to 12%.
On the owner finance? Yeah, so on the owner finance, it's different. We charge 12% interest on a 30. If I'm doing a 10-year, I'll go to 8%. And actually, we found a lot of the houses right now because the construction trades are getting back. And there was the Greater Dallas Association of Hispanic Realtors put out a study saying that a lot of the Hispanics were starting to buy houses again on refinance, specifically because when President Obama was reelected, the promise of amnesty. So they had sat on the fence for a couple years, and then they came back in droves. So what we've been doing a lot lately is cleaning up the house, getting it livable and safe, not necessarily pretty. And then we take the house and we average 10% down. And these are in $75,000 to $150,000 neighborhoods. We average 10% down. We put it on first. We create a first and a second, and they're both 10-year notes at 8%. But then the reason I do it that way is I sell the first off to recoup all my capital, and I keep the second.
30 years.
Well, on a 30, I go 12%.
What's your income first and second? First?
On a 30?
Yeah.
On the 30, I just say it's just a one. If I'm going 30 years out, it's just going to be one lien at 12%. If I'm doing the 10-year ammo on a house that may not be fixed all the way up, I create a first and a second. The first is typically about 70% loan to value. That way I can sell it out at 60 to 65%. The yield spread on that is 12 to 13% for the back-end investor. And I'm able to table fund it, get all my cash value, keep the 10% deposit, 10% down payment, and then I've got a anywhere between a $20,000 to $40,000 second lien floating out there, sending me money every month.
That's as written.
Owner finance. Owner finance.
What about-
But in Texas, you can't do lease options
Right.
or contract for deeds because of Senate Bill 629, House Bill 1823. So, and the IRS, when you do the owner finance transaction, they tax me on the entire gain as if I actually got it.
Right.
And then you get over 5, and then you got Dodd-Frank, and he's here today, right? And the SAFE Act and things of that nature. So we do a lot of table funding now to avoid that in the different LLCs and series LLCs and things of that nature.
What typically buys that person out?
I have a pool of IRA investors that just love it. Because, and a lot of it, for me too, I'm staying in the deal with the second lien. So my investor has a bit of a comfort that if there's a default, I'm probably going to step back in and redeem it. I don't ever guarantee that. I would never guarantee that. No telling what the future holds, but there's a high probability I'm going to step in and redeem it. Not at face value, but what he paid me for it. Then I'm going to wash, rinse, and repeat. Yes, sir.
Of your 750 deals, why do you think only 2 have refied? I mean, that's expensive money.
Well, it was 150 owner finance transactions, and only 2 have ever refinanced. And why do I think? Because that's a good question. So, how many mortgages see it all the way through the 40? I mean, what percentage of mortgages go all the way through the 30-year term? 1? Because they sell. Well, the problem is on an owner finance, a lot of times they just don't feel like they own it all the way. Literally, I had someone the other day, been in the house for 9 years, mailed me the keys with the final payment. Said, sorry, we have to move out. Had to go chase them down and get a deed in lieu so I could get the title back in my name. The mentality is just different. Why don't people save 10% of their income like they should?
Would you say they either A, don't have the ability also, or B, they're giving the monthly amount fits into their schedule and not.
It's a payment. They're buying the house on a payment, not on. They've got a pride of ownership. They feel like they could own it if they filled out the contract, and that's not the case. I mean, I do full-fledged, no deed trust. I mean, it's just the mentality of the person that would do it. That is in that market is just typically different. Yes, sir.
We've done, with the company I'm with, about 3,500 land contracts. And just to answer that question, as far as why don't more of those get paid off through a refinance? And in my previous experience in the mortgage industry, first of all, typically the buyer that we're selling to on a land contract is a subprime borrower. They would be getting a mortgage themselves if they could go out and get one. Once you're starting out with difficult credit, I think there is a misconception that credit repair is easy. But if you're already in an economically stressed situation, it's very difficult to improve your credit to a point where you can get a traditional mortgage. Because it doesn't take much if you're on a limited income situation to impact the credit if there's medical expense or something comes up. So my experience has been it's just even on a lease to own, the ability to repair your credit to the point of the higher lender guidelines now is just a very difficult proposition.
Yeah, and we've always used whatever the Fannie and Freddie standards were for back-end ratios, always in underwriting, because we want people to be able to pay, and also the secondary.
What about credit scores?
Credit scores, I really don't look at credit scores ever. I just make sure it's not a sex offender, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to have to take the house back, I don't want to deal with any of that. Most of the time, I don't have to do either. Because most of the time, I end up having a personal relationship with people. Because from my portfolio, I only close with people that I meet personally. Because to me, I mean, it's my annuity. I mean, it's just me and my wife. I mean, I just don't want a bunch of yahoos living in my house. So, me, a lot of times I'm able to work it out with them. But, I mean, every now and then there's a foreclosure. That's why I love Texas. 21-day notice. 3-day notice to vacate on the road. No, not in Illinois. I had one of my franchisees down from Chicago last weekend, and that was interesting. Anyone else? All right, thank y'all.